The courtroom had been tense all day, filled with murmurs, shuffling papers, and the sharp scent of coffee. The defendant, a gaunt man named Victor Holly, stared blankly at the jury as the foreman cleared his throat. As the jury reached a verdict, all 12 jurors nodded silently, their eyes flicking between each other with a strange unease. "We have, Your Honor," the foreman said, his voice trembling ever so slightly. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Please read the verdict." One by one, the jurors listened as the words left the foreman's mouth. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of all charges." A ripple of tension passed through the room. Though no one could explain why it felt heavier than normal, almost as if the air itself had thickened around them, pressing on their chests, making it hard to breathe. Victor Hale's eyes had a glint in them that none of the jurors could forget, a shadow of something unspeakable. He smiled faintly. A smile that didn't reach his eyes, a smile that seemed to reach through them. Into their minds, the jurors filed out of the courtroom, walking in silence, each step echoing in the cold hallway. None of them spoke of the unease that lingered, but each felt it gnawing, a quiet dread that pulsed with every heartbeat. That night, sleep came reluctantly, and when it did, it brought with it a darkness none of them would ever escape. The first dream struck almost at midnight, a shared horror that defied explanation. Juror 3, Claire, awoke, gasping, drenched in sweat, seeing the same image that haunted the other. 11 jurors, though none knew yet that it was shared. They were in the courtroom again, but it had warped. Walls bending at impossible angles, shadows crawling along the ceiling like living ink. The foreman's voice echoed, though distorted, chanting their verdict over and over. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Victor Harley stood in the center, impossibly tall, his features twisted in a grotesque parody of a human face, eyes black as voids, mouth stretching wider than any normal jaw should, and from him came a sound, a low, grinding, impossible noise that burrowed into their bones. Each juror felt their own guilt and fear being pulled from them, shaped into a clawing presence that surrounded them. They tried to scream, to run, but their bodies refused to obey. The courtroom dissolved into shadows and the faces of the 12. Jurors appeared on the walls, screaming silently, trapped in their own nightmare. Morning came with reluctant light, but the dread remained. They each awoke in their beds, a shared impression heavy in their minds. The air smelled of damp earth and burnt paper. An inexplicable reminder of the dream, and a single thought burned in each of their minds. He's coming for us, night after night. The dreams worsened, blending into waking life. Juror 7, Michael, noticed shadows flickering at the edge of his vision during work, moving against the walls in ways that defied physics. A whispered voice murmured, "Guilty, guilty, guilty." In every corner, calls went unanswered, doors slammed for no reason, lights flickered, and an oppressive cold followed them wherever they went. They met secretly, each fearing their own sanity, only to discover that every detail, every sound, every horror was identical, as if they were all linked in some unseen, dreadful network. Victor Hale's grin grew in every dream, the impossible height and shadowed eyes consuming the courtroom. Now he spoke, and his words weren't words but feelings, twisting the jurors' fears and memories into a living entity. They saw visions of friends, family, and strangers alike, trapped in voids, screaming, reaching for them, yet nothing could be done. They tried logic, therapy, and sleep deprivation, but nothing helped. Each morning brought them closer to the breaking point, and each night the nightmares grew more vivid, more real, more intolerable. Their world and the dream world began to merge, leaving them uncertain. Which was waking and which was nightmarest risk on the fourth night. All 12 jurors awoke in the same place, though each thought they were alone. A misty void stretched endlessly, and Victor Hole awaited, taller, darker. His grin now stretching impossibly across the horizon. The 12 stood frozen. Paralyzed by their shared terror, you passed judgment, his voice thundered in their minds. Now I pass mine, shadows surged, coiling around them like serpents. Pulling them toward the darkness, each juror felt themselves splitting, their consciousness stretching and twisting into a black void. Memories and fears consumed, they screamed together, but the sound was swallowed, replaced by a chilling silence. In that void, there were no walls, no floor, only an endless reflection of themselves, screaming, staring, trapped forever in the nightmare they had unknowingly created. When the world returned, the courtroom was empty, the case files vanished, and Victor Hole was gone. But the jurors were never the same. No one spoke of the nightmare, but each night they awoke drenched in sweat, staring at shadows that weren't there, hearing whispers that shouldn't exist, and somewhere in the darkness, they could feel him waiting, patient, grinning, knowing the verdict had only begun.